Okay, family meals. I have a couple of friends who end up like, because their kids would eat some things and the parents wanted to eat some different things, so they end up like
Being a short
with
order chef.
yeah, or they end up making like one meal for the kids at a
Yeah.
certain time, and then they put their kids to bed, and then they have their own adult meal. And while I can totally understand why you'd wanna do that, because sometimes it's, like, absolute insanity to eat with small kids. I worry about that. What
Yeah.
do you think about family meals?
Family meals, it's so important, to just sit with each other and have a family meal. Like there's tons of research on that, kids are more likely to finish high school. Kids are more likely to have a group of friends when you actually sit and have family meals. That's where
Mm,
discussions happen. That's where you share things. That's where you process your day. When you pick up your kids from school, they never want to talk. They talk at the dinner table or they talk right before they go to bed. Um,
mhm,
and so it's not a stalling technique. That's how they process and have closure to their day. So family meals are very important. So I always recommend sitting with your kids and not just standing up or being around a TV or anything like that. You sit around and have a meal. And I also like to set the table. You may not be able to do this every day. You may not be able to do it on the weekends, but that's fine. Setting the table, presentation matters. When you go to a restaurant, you enjoy the atmosphere, and that makes the meal more inviting and more enjoyable. And that's true for kids too. Don't think that, they don't notice those things. So having them have placemats. I like to have a drawer that's low down to the floor where little ones can actually access their plates, have their placemats, have their, you know, reusable napkins, there's silverware where they go and set the table, even getting like a glass jar and picking some flowers before dinner,
mm,
putting those in. It just makes it more inviting. Sorry. And so once you make that table more inviting, it actually invites the children more to the table. It makes it easier to actually get the kids to the table because that's another hard part, getting the kids to come to sit down for dinner. Another thing I like to do is buffet style, where it's all shared plates and everybody's serving themselves. When they're younger, as they get into like preschool, kindergarten, you want them to start to serve themselves so they can start to learn portion sizes, not for dieting. So get that out of your mind. It's really for them to learn, all right, this is what I'm going to start with, and I'm going to make sure to eat the food that I'm putting on my plate so we don't waste food. So I'm teaching kids about sustainability and wasting food, and, we don't want to do that. And so that's the important part of buffet style with meals. And then they also get to pick and choose. And so it's fun to put everything on the side and kind of deconstruct things because they can make up their own mind. They feel like there's more independence there. They're more willing to try it. They see the influence of siblings or cousins or whoever is at the table, which makes a difference. My
mm,
other key thing with family meals,
mhm.
there is no such thing as dessert. I'm not a big dessert person, anyways. My husband is. So, how do we balance that? We always serve fruit with the meal. You may be thinking, well, why are we serving fruit? My kid's only going to eat the fruit. So, that's usually the first question I get. It takes the mystery away because you're thinking, as a child, oh, well, I have to eat all this broccoli, but if I don't eat it, then I can't get my fruit. But fruit is better, fruit is sweeter, it's more mysterious, or the dessert is more mysterious. I want to have that. So I recommend getting rid of like the treat, the special thing that we serve at the end of the meal, and having it with the meal.
Mm.
And it's also about portion size again, because you might be thinking, well, my child's only going to eat the blueberries and they're going to just keep asking for blueberries. Everybody gets one scoop of everything on their plate. And once they are done with that portion, so say they finish their blueberries first, oh, I see lots of other foods on your plate. You have to eat lots of different kinds of foods to help your body grow. When you're done with those foods, if you're still hungry, you may have some more blueberries.
Mm.
And so that's the kind of language, because language is so key, especially with younger kids, to really help them understand and pay attention to their body and pay attention to what foods help us grow and what foods don't help us grow.
I love that. There's a lot in there that you mentioned. I want to kind of go back to the idea of what you were saying about presentation, and I
Yeah.
think that's so true. Like this idea of That's something they talk about a lot in the Montessori method, right? It's like the presentation of objects and learning objects, and have it, and how that big impact of environment and making things inviting can really make things work. I mean, you mentioned I love buffet style, of the idea of setting the table and the placemats, and we have our own napkin rings in our house, and um one thing that I noticed when we were doing some green chef meals is like they teach you how to like do these, like they're like, here they make you, they have you plate the food, right?
Yeah.
And my daughter would make the meal, and she would plate the food, and everyone would be like, oh, it's so pretty on the plate, because it's
Yeah.
it's like, here, follow this picture, and this is in the middle, and this is, and everyone was like, ooh, and all of a sudden we're eating all these exciting things because it looks so pretty, like in a restaurant,
Yeah.
and that
It's
was
true.
another kind of way. So kind of what I'm getting from like thinking of that, and thinking of the buffet and the net, the placemats and all that, is like just this idea of the importance of the environment, the aesthetic appeal, et cetera. It's not just about this
The
food.
food.
It's
It's not
about
just
it's
the
about
food.
all the senses
For sure. And there's a lot
savoring.
of psychology behind that. When you bring up plates, this is also why I don't like colorful plates or plates with characters on them, because it distracts away from the food. This is why, when you look at like chefs, they always want a white plate because it's a
Mm,
clear, plain canvas. And it's true for kids too. They want to see their food. Let the food speak for it themselves. Don't try to distract with having like a fun plate with like a map or, whatever the child's into or interested in, are curious about. Let them be curious about the food, not
mm,
the actual plate. And then another thing about that with presentation, with regards to psychology, is the amount of food, especially when you're looking at really little ones, when, like they're one, about one, or when they're starting off eating on their solid journey. You don't want to put too much on their plate. When you overwhelm a child with too much food before they're serving themselves, it can be very overwhelming. You want your child to learn to pay attention to their body, and this is how they start. Let them ask for more and say, I'm still hungry,
mm.
and you can actually play around with the plate size, make it a smaller plate if they feel like, oh, they don't have enough of food on their plate. So it's trial and error, you know, do a smaller plate so it looks like there's enough more food on their plate, but there's not actually as much food on the plate. And so there's a lot of psychology with all of that going on. So you really just have to pay attention to what works with your children.
So now that my kids are getting older, um, they, when we were younger, we didn't do anything on the weeknights except, have dinner and do bedtime and that whole thing.
Right.
But now, I have one daughter who wants to swim. I have the other daughter who's volunteering at the horse barn, mucking stalls. And so we're going out and, and picking them up at like 7:30 at
Right.
night and coming back home. And my husband was a little, he's, he has his own issues and concerns with food, because he has issues with gluten intolerance and things like that, and digestion.
Right.
And so he was thinking that, well, we would eat earlier and they would do their thing, but the girls wanted to eat when they came home.
Yeah.
And so now we're eating dinner at like 8 o'clock at night. And I feel good about that, because we're still having this family dinner, this moment to decompress,
Right.
this moment to gather. And that feels really, really good. So, what do you think in this idea, like as far as like development, like, what's more important, these extracurricular activities that may be at nighttime, or family dinners, or should we, find a way to do both? If we can't, what wins?
I think that's a great question, especially as kids start to get more scheduled and have more activities as they get older. The activities are important. You obviously don't want to overschedule your child, and you want to pay attention to what your child wants to do versus, you know, knowing if it's too much for them and seeing how it's impacting, their social life, their schooling, how they handle everything around them. So that's important to look at first. Second, yeah, you still want to have those family dinners. So I applaud you for still having, you still have them at night. At 7:30, 8 o'clock at night when you sit down. It might be, a little bit faster of a meal,
Yeah.
but at least you're still sitting down and you're having those conversations. The family meal is so important to have those conversations because that's when your kids divulge things to you. They let you into their life because it's the end of the day and they're more willing to let you in. So I do think if you can try to squeeze those family meals in, very important. If you're not going to do them on Friday or Saturday because they've got activities, make sure to do it on Sunday, So trying to at least pick at least once, if not more, a week where you're really sitting down and having those nice family meals where you're all getting together.
Catch new episodes of the Mindful Mama podcast and other free resources, including the Mindful Mom Guide at mindfulmamamentor.com. You can listen to every back catalog episode, including interviews with Dr. Dan Siegel, Iyanla Vanzant, Sharon Salzberg, and get meditations, join our private Facebook group, and more. Go to mindfulmamamentor.com now. I'll see you there.